Buying's supposed to be the fun part, but it's been kind of ruined by the Sony A7 III just because of how much better it is than most of the options you're going to find at around $1,500. It was released in 2018 and competed against the Nikon Z6, which now sells for $750, and the Canon EOS R, which is $850, and both of those are discontinued while Sony is still selling the A7 III. And what sets it apart is the noticeable upgrade in autofocus performance over high-end DSLRs, and the high ISO performance was just incredible. Suddenly low light is not an issue anymore. And so while it is $1,500 new, you can find them for $1,000, and that is in line with a next generation cameras from Nikon with the Z6 II, and Canon, I believe it comes down to the R6 or R8, depending on what you want to view as the successor to the EOS R. And then with any of the cameras released after those, pretty much everything is excessively good for any sort of general hybrid use. And that's who I would recommend the A7 III to. It's going to be good for anything you can think of that you want to use a camera for. There are going to be specialty cameras that can be better for specific tasks, but if you're new to photography or videography and you want something that you're not sure what you're going to end up doing, but that's going to do it well, the A7 III is hard to beat. And then it becomes important to consider lenses. I would not recommend using the 28-70 f3.5 to 5.6. It was a $200 lens new. It's just not that good of a lens. Something has to be the worst full frame lens for the Sony E-mount. It's probably that lens. I think you can do better with some other options. This is also where the price differences show up, because the E-mount is the oldest full-frame mirrorless lens mount by several years, and so it has that advantage in terms of just used options on the market. We can see that with the first lens that I'm going to look for any camera system is going to be a 50mm f1.8. For Sony, their 50 f1.8 can easily be found for under $200. Whereas with Nikon, the 50mm f1.8S is $400. I'm sure that the image quality is going to be better, but it is $200 more expensive. And if you pair it with a Z6 II, I think you might have trouble coming in under $1,500. And then I am impressed, the Canon RF 50mm is actually cheaper than the Sony. But when we look at other lenses like the Sony Zeiss 24-70 f4, that's only $400, and it would be a lens that I would choose over the kit lens. And then moving on to sort of higher end options, a 24-70 f2.8 G Master can be had for $800. And then when you look at Canon, the RF 24-70 is $1,800. And that's why the E-mount is a compelling system from like $1,500 to $2,500. It really excels in that price range, especially if you're looking for something like action, sports, or wildlife. For birds, my recommendation is going to be the Nikon P1000 or P1100. They're bridge cameras, which means the lens is attached, but the benefit of that is that they have an equivalent zoom range out to 3,000 millimeters. It's going to make it significantly easier to capture birds without needing to hide or wear camo. It's the type of camera that's good if you want to take it for a walk or a short hike. It'll be light enough to do that and capture birds. And then by comparison, lenses for mirrorless or even DSLR full frame APS-C cameras, it doesn't really matter. They tend to be much larger and heavier. Plus there's the added cost of a bag, maybe lens filters because these do have large front elements, and even a tripod because they get to be relatively heavy which means you need a stronger tripod to support them. And then they can get heavy enough to where you won't want to handhold them for long periods of time either. So a monopod could also be an option. What I consider to be the mid-level entry into a sports, action, wildlife setup would be the Nikon D500 paired with the 200 to 500 millimeter f5.6e. There's still a relatively easy combo to get, but the real issue is that even used, you're looking at $800 for the camera, $800 for the lens. That's $1,600, which is more than the $1,500 budget. Looking at things from other systems, the Canon has the 800 millimeter f11. I think used copies of that are around $700. So you pair that with a $1,000 body, $1,700. I think the one reasonable option would be the Tamron 70 to 300 for either Sony E or Nikon Z. It doesn't have a huge telephoto range, but 300 or 450 millimeter equivalent on an APS-C body is decent. There are, of course, APS-C cameras, but it's pretty clear that manufacturers are focusing on full-frame mirrorless bodies because those are more expensive. They have higher profit margins. They're not really releasing high-end APS-C bodies. But when you consider what's available, I feel like the two Sonys are going to be some of the better options when you consider lenses and you want to keep it under $1,500. And those would be the A6600, which you could find for like $850, and the A6400. 650 is pretty good. You would be able to do some sports and action with that with a 300 millimeter lens pretty well. I'm not crazy about the Nikon option. The Z52 is like $1,000, but it is going to be one of the better for video. And then there's the ZFC, which has the vintage style, but I would not want to use that for sports or action. And then Canon, not great. The R7, probably good camera, but $1,100. It's going to be difficult to get it with a lens. And the R10, like $800. And I'm not really going to talk about Fujifilm that much. I think the cameras are expensive for what you get, and the lenses are noticeably more expensive on the used market. So the cameras end up being not a great value for what you get. In terms of video, that's where the Micro Four Thirds cameras are going to show up. You're going to be able to get into the Panasonic GH lineup of cameras. Sweet spot for $1,500 is probably the GH6, but I'm also sure you could find a GH5S as well. And then there's also the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K, which is going to be another great choice if you want a cinematic camera, because both of those have 10-bit video, which the A7 III does not. So if you want that highest quality video, you're doing things with a green screen, special effects, they can be a better choice. And the Z52 is worth looking at. Nikon bought red in 2024, and since then the expectation is that the video quality in their cameras and the software support and everything is going to be better. Nikon is looking to compete more in the realm of video, which is something they didn't put a lot of effort into with their DSLRs. For content quality video like this, having the absolute best, I'm not sure it matters, and in some cases can be a setback. If you have large video files, they're going to be compressed, and if they're going to end up on social media, I don't think that that quality is going to be appreciated at all. So in that vein of thinking, you're allowed to own multiple cameras, and you can have something that is good for video. I've been using the Sony ZV-1, and you can find them for under $500, and it's fine for that. In the past few years, it seems like phones, high-end phones have gotten good enough in terms of video quality that people can't tell them apart in comments when people out themselves for using them. So there's also that option, because that opens up the ability to use older cameras, which are not good at video, but still perfectly fine for photos. what always comes to mind for me is older micro four thirds cameras. They're actually smaller, there are small lenses available, and they're fine for photography. The drawback of the video ones, like the GH6 I mentioned earlier, is that they're about the same size or larger than full-frame mirrorless cameras, and I want the ability to have a small camera with me if I'm going to be carrying several around. That way they end up weighing as much as a full-frame DSLR or a mirrorless camera with a larger lens. I like the opportunity for fun that provides. Can get old DSLRs for under $100, like Instax cameras, can occasionally even shoot film, and it doesn't have to be that big of a deal because the cameras are cheap and I'm only using them for photography, and in that situation you can get away with a lot if you just want to do general everyday things and you're not pushing the technical specs that are required. So with all that in mind, the A7 III and the A6600 would probably be the two cameras I would suggest looking at. The A6600 is going to be better for sports, action, and wildlife. It's an APS-C sensor camera, so you get that extra crop. Helps you get a little extra reach. For anything else, I think that the Sony A7 III is the camera to beat. There's a reason Sony is still selling it. It's still good enough to do just about anything you can imagine. Yeah, I mean, there are technically better cameras, but they're not that much better considering the additional price. It's an unseasonably warm day in March, which has me thinking about maybe making this year a year for birds for me, which is why I will be making videos going over super telephoto lenses for all the systems to get a more accurate idea of what you have to pay to get into any of them.